Grab your rifles and get to the boat. Today I'm ranking the King Kong movies, and only the movies, so none of the TV shows are going to be included. I haven't even seen any of them, so what would be the point? Starting off down at the bottom, as always, my number 9 is King Kong Lives. This movie is not as bad as its reputation suggests, but it's not good by any means. I honestly can't tell if Linda Hamilton actually cared about this role, or if it was just a paycheck for her, because there are some moments where she's actually putting in effort. And then there are some moments where it just seems like she couldn't care less. The rest of the acting ranges from bland to over the top. The villain is too much of a one-dimensional cartoon to take seriously. That being said, for all this movie's faults, it's not boring. There are a few aspects that are genuinely good, and there's a lot of shit that's just unintentionally hilarious. Probably the best example is the scene where they're giving Kong a heart transplant. You heard that right. They give a giant gorilla a heart transplant. And they give him an artificial heart. A giant artificial heart.
Clamp.
The main clamp.
It's something. My score is 2 out of 5. Number 8 is Son of Kong. This movie is 70 minutes long, and it takes 43 minutes for us to get to the actual Son of Kong. Now, we do have some returning cast members from the first movie, and they're fine. They're good. The writing isn't nearly as good, but the acting is fine. The lead-up to the Son of Kong is fairly interesting, and thankfully it's only 43 minutes. But really, honestly, there's not much to say about this movie. It came out the same year as the original King Kong, so it's very obviously a cash grab. My score is 2.1 out of 5. Number 7 is King Kong 1976. This movie is pretty faithful to the original. It makes enough changes to kind of stand on its own, but it doesn't make enough changes to avoid feeling like a retread. I do like that they have it set at the time of release instead of also being set in the 30s. So instead of airplanes shooting him down, it was helicopters. The special effects are a mixed bag. Some of them hold up surprisingly well. Some of them are very, very dated. acting is good overall. Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange has some solid chemistry, and the music is fine but not particularly memorable. My score is 3 out of 5. Number 6 is King Kong Escapes. All things considered, I would not have minded seeing more Japanese King Kong from Ishiro Honda, because the 2 movies he made are pretty good. This movie has the distinction of pitting a giant monster against their robotic doppelganger a full 7 years before Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. So, props. The writing isn't the best, but it's on par with King Kong vs. Godzilla. Likewise with the acting, which is sometimes over the top and campy, but pretty good overall. Probably the best thing I can say about this movie is that it's never boring. There's always something going on to hold your interest. We'll wait. Okay. The King Kong suit is definitely an improvement over King Kong vs. Godzilla, and Mechani-Kong looks awesome. There's not as much action as you might expect, but the final fight is awesome. Also, I shit you not, the villain's name is Doctor Who. I found that amusing. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 5 is King Kong 2005. It is very obvious that Peter Jackson is a huge fan of the original King Kong and made this movie as a love letter to it. The only problem is that said love letter is 187 minutes long. It's a really good movie, but it's also a really long movie. And honestly, they could have trimmed off at least a half hour. The acting is solid across the board. The action is awesome. The CG is hit and miss. Kong looks great, but there's some other stuff that doesn't hold up very well. The bug pit scene is legitimately one of the scariest scenes in a non-horror movie. And obviously, Andy Serkis is phenomenal as King Kong. My score is 3.6 out of 5. Number 4 is Godzilla vs. Kong. I hope the people who complained about the first 3 MonsterVerse movies focusing too much on the human characters and not enough on the monsters are happy now, because they're not allowed to complain anymore. This movie has some of the most epic kaiju action in the MonsterVerse so far, but the humans, new and returning, are so thinly written that they feel more like plot devices than actual characters. Alexander Skarsgård is the only actor whose character gets something even close to an arc. That being said, this is a very satisfying payoff to the 3-movie build-up we've had. Ben Saracens' cinematography is fluid and dynamic, he clearly knows what he's doing. Junkie XL's musical score is great, although it pales in comparison to Bear McCreary's score in King of the Monsters. The visual effects have gotten better with each MonsterVerse movie, and this is the best they've looked so far. The action is great, and the Hong Kong battle is probably the best action scene in the entire MonsterVerse. Finally, I absolutely love this version of Mechagodzilla. My score is 3.9 out of 5. Number 3 is King Kong vs. Godzilla. In addition to being a crossover, this movie was also kind of poking fun at previous kaiju movies, especially with the human characters, and yeah, I think it works. The monster suits are not great, but the actors inside them are doing a great job, and the action is pretty awesome. The human characters aren't always realistic, but they're a lot of fun to watch. Like I said, the action is awesome, and I love that they level the playing field by giving Kong bizarre electrical powers. It makes no sense, but it's awesome. The score is 3.95 out of 5. Number 2 is Kong Skull Island. The one thing that Peter Jackson's King Kong has over this movie is Andy Serkis. This movie is better in pretty much every other way. I love that it actually tells a different story instead of just being a retelling of the original. The acting is all good if not great, especially John C. Reilly. He is easily the best human character in this movie. The music is very good and the action is great, especially the final battle. My score is 4 out of 5. Finally, my number 1 is the original King Kong. Honestly, this movie is almost 100 years old. What is there to say about it that hasn't been said already? It's a classic for a fucking reason. The acting is great, the script is tight, it's not 3 hours long, so that's nice. And honestly, the special effects have no right to hold up as well as they do. The action and the music are also great. There's one little thing I learned about this movie is that when they were doing the stop motion animation for King Kong, the animators would freak out a little bit every time they had to move Kong for the next frame, because every time they touched him, they would move his fur a little bit. And they were worried that audiences would be able to tell it was fake. Well, instead, critics and audiences ended up praising the stop motion animators for making it look like Kong's fur was blowing in the wind. So a legitimate, unavoidable mistake was praised as a great special effect. I will never not love that. My score is 5 out of 5. Hey everyone, let me know what you think in the comments. What's your ranking? Like and subscribe and all that. If you didn't like the video, subscribe anyway so you can tell me how bad my other stuff is. I'll take any feedback I can get, honestly. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.